I don't know, I'm not sure if this is, oh, is this on? Yep, I think it is.
No.
No?
Yep.
Now it's on? That was my dad for sure.
Yeah.
That was dad for sure. Dad, stop talking. Stop singing, Dad. Okay, deep breath. Wow, there's a lot of people here. It actually, I wasn't going to tell this story, but now that there's so many people here and we've said hello to everyone, it reminds me of a time several years ago when my dad was telling his story at Fox Hall. When Fox Hall was in the old Eden Prairie location, and it was late August, and he pulled up and he saw that like every lot was full, and he, you know, how my dad was, you know, look at all these people that have come to hear me speak. And he walked in and he said to one of his friends, like, can you believe like so many people here? And he said, Joel, this is park and ride for the state fair. Put my dad in his place right away. So I am Katie, and I am Joel's youngest and, I might add, favorite daughter. My sister might say the same thing, but we want to thank everyone for coming today to help us already. To help us celebrate the life of an extraordinary, loving man. I spent a lot of time with my dad in the hospital when he broke his hip, and I had a lot of time to think about what I would say today. But I kept replaying the same childhood memory over and over and over again. It was all I could think about. I was little, probably 5 or 6 years old. My dad took me skiing, and we sat down on the chairlift. And you know, usually when we sat down on the chairlift, my dad would light a smoke, and he'd, you know, smoke all the way up, you know, all the way up to the top of the hill. But it was really cold, and it was really windy. So as soon as I sat down on the chairlift, I snuggled up closer to him. Man, this is harder than it was in my kitchen.
I'm already nervous, so you're making me more nervous.
But he put his arm around me and he cupped his huge hands in front of my small face to shelter me from the wind. And he did that all the way up the hill. And I know now, when I sat down to write this eulogy, I know now why that memory kept replaying itself in my mind over and over and over again. It was because that's who he was to me my whole entire life. My protector, my savior. But more than my protector and my savior, he was my cheerleader. He was my biggest fan. He was my, don't look at me, Nikki, you're gonna make me cry. He was my conscience, my conspirator, my advisor. He understood all of my jokes, and then later in life, he introduced me to my most important friend, co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill Wilson. Some of you in this room might know him. And after I got sober and I was struggling with my faith and I was full of fear or doubt, he would say, Katie, do you know what the opposite of fear is? And I'd say, what? And he'd say, faith. Yep. And he used to always say to me, no one is hopeless. Nothing is hopeless. No one's hopeless. There's always hope. You have to believe in people. Don't count people out. And this disease we shared, alcoholism, became our most important connection, something that would link us together forever. Growing up, people would always say, God, you remind me so much of your dad. And laugh just like your dad. Gosh, you know, that's something that, oh, your dad would say something like that. And they'd laugh. And being a grateful alcoholic made me more my father's daughter than I ever knew I could be. And there's no one I'd want to trudge that road of happy destiny beside me than my dad. he was amazing. His faith and sobriety made him believe that good things really do come to pass if you work for them. And his dedication to his sobriety became like his religion. And when I got sober, it became mine as well. Even when he struggled with his health later on in life, he still went to 6 meetings a week. And I don't know who among us can say that. Certainly not me, sorry, Dad. Several years ago, my dad and I had a conversation about legacy. And I mean, this was probably 10 or 15 years ago. We had a conversation about legacy. And he said, you know, I wish I had something to give you and your sister, some money or something of value. And even back then, I thought that that was so weird because I knew that his legacy would never be about money. It would never be about money. He leaves behind an even greater legacy than money can buy. He leaves behind the memory of a loving father and grandfather and friend. And you can't buy that. You can't. This is his legacy. The best gift I could have ever gotten from him is his wisdom, his laughter, his steady presence in my life and in all of our lives. And invaluable lessons that will remain really forever etched in my mind. For example, the importance of humility, self-awareness, accountability, finding your part, and never being afraid to apologize first. I remember getting into an argument with someone several years ago, and I called my dad and I said, well, I bit the bullet. I apologized first, and he didn't apologize. And my dad said, well, all that matters, Katie, is that you cleaned your side of the street. Yeah. You're only responsible for yourself, and that has to be okay. But his most important legacy was his devotion and love for his family. That was everything to him. Despite life's twists and turns, we remained united as a family. See, my sister's going like this with a tissue. She's trying to make me cry, so get it over with. You're the devil. Despite everything, life's twists and turns, we were all together for Sunday dinners, for holidays, for anniversaries, for births and birthdays and graduations, and we were always together, all of us. And then, of course, every Sunday for Sunday dinner. And more important to him, though, was the relationship between me and my sister. He used to always say to us, don't ever let anything come between you and your sister. And believe me when I say, there have been people, places, and things that have tried to break the bond between us, but we always work it out. And we will always work it out, because there's nothing more important than family. But his legacy it's much, much more. And we discovered this when my dad was in the hospital the last days of his life, because my sister and I received a gazillion phone calls and text messages and emails and Facebook messages. And what we came to understand was that his legacy reached far beyond his role as a father and a grandfather. But his legacy is also one of service. His greatest love was indeed his family, but we shared that love that he had for us with all of you, with every member of AA, with his friends and the still suffering alcoholic. And we share that love happily, because that's really what made his life fulfilling. His influence on our life, on my life, on my nieces and nephew, my sister, my brother-in-law, my mom, my stepdad, my uncles and aunts, is undeniable, and it will last for generations. Love and devotion to family, recovery, and service, these are his legacies. For 3 years, I've been mourning the loss of my dad as I knew him. A stroke, aphasia, dementia, COVID, all of it. They took him away from me, from all of us. And he would bitterly complain all the time, as I'm sure some of you in this room heard him complain and about his present circumstances. And when he would do that, I'd say, God, I miss my dad. And he'd say, I miss me too. And it was impossible during the last 3 years to really remember. I remember having a conversation with my sister and saying, I don't even remember what dad used to be like. But in the hospital, the people that visited him during the last days of his life, you stood around his bed and you told these amazing stories that had us laughing and crying, and a miraculous thing happened. When you left and we looked down at our dad, he wasn't sick and struggling anymore. He was Joel. He was my dad. He was funny and kind and sarcastic and loving. And that is the man that we're here to celebrate today. Did I make everyone cry? Dad. I'll love you and miss you forever.
I gotta follow that?
Yeah, you're up.
This is my worst nightmare. I hate emotion. I hate talking in front of people. I'm probably gonna try to read what I wrote, but I don't know if I make it. We used to do this thing with my dad. I'm going off script, Katie. We used to do this thing with my dad on his birthday. We'd buy him these really super sappy cards, and then he'd have to read them out loud. And because he was so sensitive that he could never make it through without crying. And it was always, we'd have the game, like who could make him cry first? And we'd just be like, oh, you got him, oh, I got him. My dad, I prepared something, I don't know if I'm gonna make it through, but Aaron, you're my backup, okay, are you ready?
There's no backups.
Oh, there's backups, okay.
I got a soldier.
I'm Joel's eldest daughter. Katie in the hospital, she kept like whispering in his ear, I'm your favorite daughter, right? I'm your favorite daughter, right? And so she probably like got that into his mind, but you know, the firstborn is always the favorite, and you know that. And my name is Andrea, and my dad called me Nikki. Years ago, the thought of speaking at this memorial would have been just like the biggest nightmare, because my dad, am I gonna make it through the first paragraph?
It gets easier.
He was my entire universe. I mean, everything. Okay, pull it together. My dad's life was not what he wanted it to be. You know, but when he was 40, he got sober. And the pre-sober dad and the post-sober dad, I mean, I remember both of them, obviously, but I remember before he got sober. And I admit to remembering some of that stuff, and he hated that. But when he emerged afterwards, he was 1,000% dedicated to my sister and I. I mean, he would have done anything for us. But he really felt like he had a lot to make up for. And he spent his whole life trying to make amends to every single person that he had disappointed or mistreated and wronged prior to 1982. But to me, it was overkill because he was perfectly imperfect. In my mind, you know, he understood who he was, and he worked so hard to become the person he ended up becoming. And he was the most self-aware person I've ever known. And I feel sadly that he maybe never understood, you know, that he lived up to everyone's expectations, and I wish he could have seen himself through my eyes. There was never a moment in my life that I did not feel my dad's support and love. In high school, he was my biggest fan. He went to all my plays. He supported my art. And at one point, my favorite artist back then was Chuck Close. And he did portraits, and these amazing portraits. And he lived in New York City, and my dad said, you know, you should call him up. you should see if you could go there and like, you know, intern for him or something, which was the most ridiculous thing to say. But like he really believed that, you know, I could work for him or I could be the best artist in the world. So he just never, he was absolutely never thought I could fail at anything. And I can't tell you what that support meant to me and how it propped me up and how I needed it and depended on it. And all of those years, he was my biggest fan. And we spent so much time together. We'd go on vacations alone together. I mean, he was my best friend. And then we had this special night. Katie and I started it back up towards the end as we would go over to his house on Wednesday nights, and we would watch 90210 and Melrose Place, and we'd order pasta, and it was so fun, and the music would start playing, and he'd get all excited. And then after I had Maddie, and Maddie was born, he would bring pasta over to my house, and he would bring, you know, donuts and chocolate cake, and on Wednesdays we'd sit, we wouldn't watch anything, we'd watch Maddie, you know, because she's a baby, and we were so excited, but we kept that tradition alive. There are so many lessons that I learned from my dad over the years that prepared me to raise a family of my own, and first and foremost was unconditional love. I made so many stupid mistakes in my 20s. Some of you here probably have heard some of those. I know Chuck McCormick has heard some of those stories. I just did the dumbest stuff, and I can't imagine trying to raise me. But he never faltered in his support and his love. Another lesson was family, as Katie was saying. The importance of family and how loyalty to your family was essential. He taught me that to be a real man, you needed to be vulnerable, you needed to be honest, and you needed to be able to receive feedback. And that male role model helped ensure that I picked the right life partner in Harry. And later on when I met Harry and we became engaged, he didn't hold me back. He never felt threatened by another man in my life. He just understood what a good guy Harry was, and he embraced that relationship, and he threw us the most amazing wedding. And he sold his beloved Harley Davidson to fund it, because the sky was the limit. And he wanted everything. He never wanted to not deny us anything growing up. In the mid-2000s, my dad moved in with my family, and at the time he really needed it, but what I didn't understand is that we needed it too. And he helped raise my kids, my 3 kids. They were very close to him, and I wanted to share that with him because I owed it to him, and I wanted my kids to know what an amazing grandpa he was and dad he was, and I think that they do know that. And they called him Papa, and a lot of the Annunciation people that are here know that because they called him Papa too. And he was a fixture in our Annunciation community. He would do the poker nights and the chili cook-off, and he was at mass with us, and then when he had moved in with us about a year later, I had my son Joey, and there was no question in the world what he was going to be named. He was going to be named Joel after my dad. But when we were pregnant and I told him, I found out I got the ultrasound, and I literally got pulled over by the police on the way home. So I was trying to get home so fast to tell Harry and tell my dad that I was gonna have a boy. He never had a boy. So I say, Dad, it's gonna be a boy. And he's like, a boy? What am I gonna do with a boy? But he really stepped up and was very, very close to Joey. And, Joey has so much of my dad in him. And he was so proud of him. He was so proud of you, Joey. But Joey has his mannerisms. Joey's sitting there with his legs crossed exactly like my dad would be sitting right now. And he's kind and he's vulnerable, just like my dad was. Okay, so, where am I? I'm going off topic here. I think if you ask my dad, what grade he would give himself on his life, he'd probably say maybe like a C+, because he never felt like he was really good enough at being a dad or good enough in AA or good enough in anything he did. But I think that's just so inaccurate but it's also so humble, and that's who he was. And my dad just didn't understand how amazing he was. He only saw his shortcomings. And I wish he could have understood the impact that he had on everyone's life here, and people that aren't here. He was just simply amazing. And in closing, I'd like to say, you know, my dad's life was a life well lived.
Yeah.
And, you know, I miss him, and I loved him so much. And that's it, I made it through. Okay. Right now we'd love anybody and everybody to please come up and tell a story, anything you'd like to say. We're videotaping this. Oh God, I videotaped that terrible speech I just gave. But we'd love to look back at this later and look at all these stories. Thank you.
For those who don't understand what I'm going to say, but there will be folks out there. My name is Mark Higgins, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Mark.
Joel and I have known each other for 30 years at least, and as I'm sitting here listening to this, you know, we got each other through life. We had good things, bad things. Businesses came, money came, problems came, health came, and we stuck together all of the time. And for all the families sitting in the front row here, I just want to talk to you for a couple minutes, because I knew him as he was my confidant, and he was like my adopted big brother that I never had. And we talked essentially every day for years and years and years. And I would get a blow-by-blow account of what was happening, especially in your kids' life, the grandkids I want to talk to first, because he was so proud of you. And I won't call him Joel, I'm going to call him Papa. I gave him that nickname years ago because when the little ones would come to him and say Papa, it just melted his heart, and he would tell me about it over and over, and I go, well, that's your name now. And so I give all the guys we rode our bikes with, I gave them nicknames. And so that was his, and we never called him anything else for years. And we'd be in public somewhere, and I'd say, hey, Papa, and I think people must have thought it was weird. Because it's not like he's my grandpa, but I'm 65 years old, and here I'm calling him Papa all the time. And for the girls, you were the light of his life and the apple of his eye till the day he quit breathing. All I heard was, you know, Katie did this, Nikki did this, and he was always so proud, and he would have given you anything. He would have given you the last dollar in his pocket and the last breath he had for you. And for Harry, he thought really well of you, bless your heart, and he was glad you were in his family. And Karen and Dave, he thought really, really, really well of you, and that's all he really spoke. I got a blow by blow, and I feel like I knew you guys. And I only maybe saw you in passing a few times, but that's how much we talked. And so, you know, the one thing about Joel, or Papa, was he had this quiet wisdom. And it wasn't like an overt, like me, I tell everybody what they should do. I'm this VP in this thing, and I think I got to tell everybody what to do. And Papa would just kind of go, well, you know, Musty, you're being kind of goofy here. And I think you're looking at it wrong. And, or else he would say to me, Musty, you're trying to make sense out of nonsense here. And he would have this quiet wisdom that when I needed someone to talk to, and I would call Joel, and he would call me. He'd call me sometimes early in the morning and say, oh, the boys woke me up early this morning. We've been having a meeting in my head, which only some of us know what that means. And so, and we talk it through, and you know, as the years went by and the older I got, the more I understood him, and the closer we got. And I love all my friends that I met in this fellowship and that I've crossed paths with in life, but we were really similar, him and I. And we had a similar life story, and we had the similar regrets. We tried the same things to make up for those. And I can remember one bit of advice he gave me one time was one of the most brilliant things that anyone ever said to me, and I can't share it necessarily here, the whole thing, but You said, you know, things were crashing in 2008 with the housing market and this and that. And he says, it's not that big of a deal. He says, that bank doesn't need that money as much as you do. And so that's how he was one of the most loving and smart and caring guys I ever met. Now, the last couple of years we drew closer. The kind of sicker Joel got, the closer I got to him, and so I called him every morning for a long time because I wanted to be sure he was okay. And, no, let's not go to Penn. And he was my friend, so I don't want to. And as we would talk every day, I could hear he wasn't being himself like it was always before. And so, you know, I would come out more to visit him. And if on October 14th of this year, I was at my desk out in California, and I called him, and I just this little voice, the voice of God, and then when your little voice talks to you, you should listen to it. It said to me, as clear as I'm standing here talking in this microphone, it said, "You go see him right now." I picked up the phone. I booked a flight from Sacramento, California to here. I spent 11 or 12 days with him, essentially, and that was in the beginning of November. And then the day that I left is when he fell, and what transpired. And he was, I actually at dinner, I can't wait to dinner because I got a bunch of really funny things to tell, but this stuff that he used to tell me, but he was kind, and when you needed someone, Joel was there. Mm-hmm. And he was an amazing person and a great best friend. And the last thing I want to share that was back in the 90s or whenever years it was, there was this movie called Angels in the Outfield. Some of you young kids might have watched that when you were little. And this little kid used to say, "It could happen," and that was my son's favorite movie. And so we used to say that to each other, "It could happen." So the day Joel passed was a really tough day for me. Hang on. So I'm standing in my office and I go, "Come on, Pop, we're going golfing." And I for the guys who golf in the room, I shot a 74 and I'm a 7.5, 8 handicap, which is pretty good golf. And I was talking to him the whole way, and it's like I would hit a shot, and I swear to God, that ball went like this and went towards the hole. And he was like my angel on the golf course instead of angel in the outfield. I'll love him for the rest of my life, and save me a chair.
Alright, hi. I'm Joel.
Papa's grandson.
Yeah, I'm Papa's grandson. Yeah, I don't know, there's so many things I want to say, but wrote some stuff down. And I just kind of want to talk about, like, what I love most about Papa. I love that Papa, he was like always in my corner, whether it was like getting food when I was unhappy or letting me win in Monopoly when I was too young to know what he was doing. I love that he was a friend, a good one. On a random Sunday, we would go on a little Papa adventure. He'd take my sisters and I to the movies, which he loved so much, the golf course, which he loved so much, the skate park or the ski hill. He took me everywhere, and he would do anything for any of us. And that's the thing I really love most was we always went on these car adventures and these car rides, and we would do so much bonding. Where Jazz 88 was always resonating the grooviest music. Wherever I needed to go, Papa would take me, and he would take me get a haircut at his favorite barbershop. can't remember the barber's name. I think his name was Ed. But I would get to be one of the boys with him just for a little bit. And yeah, he would take me to snowboarding practice through like the worst traffic on 494.
The
Sorry about
trainer being like,
Okay, yeah. So he would take me to snowboard practice through like the worst traffic of like 45 minutes. And, you know, he would do everything with a smile and a joke too. And, you know, he loved to share what he loves. And he was a character defined by such unique style and interesting interests, which was so like intoxicating to be around. He loved Savoy pizza. He didn't love Domino's. He loved all these such like peculiar things. I had another good one. I completely forgot it. But yeah, I don't know. He was such a proponent of uniqueness and for you to be whatever you are, however you are. And that's, I guess, what I learned most from him is like give whatever you have, like whenever you can, and you should love what you love and you should share with other people whenever you can. And yeah, I love you, Papa. Thank you.
don't make me come and get you guys. I'm just,
There he is.
Hi, I'm Harold, or Harry, as most of you know me. My son-in-law. Wrote a few notes, but we'll see. Didn't practice like some of you guys did. So, anyway, Papa, he's a great grandparent, and I'll just.
can't push it all the way.
I got a pretty low voice. All right. He's a great grandparent, as you're finding out, and a lot of you are aware. And he's kind of like a third parent in a lot of ways. Particularly when he moved in with us, and those first few years I was traveling a lot for business, and he was there for the kids. As Joey said, give them rides all the time, and just great. Just helped me out a lot. Anyway, yeah, give him Joey haircuts. He loved to buy the kids snow boots. Just stuff like that. He'd take Buster, the dog, to the groomer. Love doing that. Buster come back all shiny and fluffy, and Papa doll, be all proud that Buster got a nice haircut. And he loved our kitty, Lola. She'd always be bugging him, and there's this, feed me kind of thing, but that I've learned about it. But they had this great bond, really fun. And then, as Joey mentioned, Joey was at go to Highland Hills, 5:15 drop off in Bloomington. You couldn't pick a worse time to be driving on 494. And he'd take him there. Andrew and I were busy working and stuff, and that just helped us out so much. Wednesday night was pasta night. A lot of times he'd drive over to Russo's in St. Paul, pick up meatballs and sauce, or else we make the homemade sauce, and it was just always fun to do that. Super generous. In 2013, we went on a road trip down to the Grand Canyon. A couple weeks before we went, all of a sudden Papa happened to buy, he's in the car business, happened to buy a 2010 Nissan Armada, which he casually rented to us for 2 weeks, and then he sold it about a month later. That was a nice ride. I mean, that's the kind of generosity he had. He'd find little ways to make your life better. He was a great babysitter. He helped us a ton with that. He was a pet sitter. We could go on vacation. He'd hang with Buster and Kitty. He'd help solve problems. I remember Andrea had our Jeep got in an accident, got totaled, and we happened to have the hard top of this Jeep in our garage, and he was kind of internet savvy, selling stuff, so he helped us find a buyer and helped us sell our Jeep hardtop. You know, we had a lot of fun times back in '99. Andrea, Papa, and I went up to Big Winnie. We went fishing, and it was 4th of July weekend. We're McCardle's Resort, this mom and pop resort, no AC, 100 degrees, and we're just sitting there sweating. You'll see a photo of Pop and I with our shirts off out there, and we're just living. And we took a launch out on the lake, and sure as shit, a big storm, it just gets black. This storm comes through. If anyone remembers the blowdown storm of the Boundary Waters, that was like July 4th of '99. We happened to be on a launch in the middle of Lake Winnebagosh, and Andrea was 6 months pregnant with Maddie, and we were too far offshore. We just rode it out, and the guy just kept driving into the waves, 3-foot waves every direction you look. It was black as can be out there, and eventually the storm passed and the sun came out and we kept fishing. But it was good times. We always went to State Fair with Papa and the kids. Sometimes we'd get smart enough after a while to bring 2 cars, and maybe Papa would do the day shift with us, and Andrew would stay, and I would stay a little longer. That was always fun. Annunciation, you really grasp the community there. We had our first of several annual Annunciation poker tournaments hosted at our house, and sure as shit, Papa was there at the final table and in the final 2, finishing at 2 in the morning. He was on fire. He really liked that Annunciation crew. Then we had the chili cook-off. I don't know if he won it. He definitely was
He
participating.
made the chili, and I pretended it was mine, and I won.
Andrea won, but Papa was the.
He knew he made it, but he let me take the glory.
But he was right there for it. It was great. And Andrew and I, in the late '90s, Andrew and I, before kids, we'd go golfing with Papa, and that was his big passion. And I was pretty much a hack. Andrew was not so good either, but he'd golf with us. And it was always great. Papa he'd always get a cart. So then Andrew always loved to ride with him. So that freed me up to just kind of walk and kind of just do my own thing and meet him at the green. It was great. But we had fun. The last thing I'll bring up is Papa always had a guy. A guy for this, a guy for that. And he was kind of my car guy. And for 20 years he helped me buy a used car. So I like my vintage cars. I like to see about 10 years of use, 10 to 15 years of use, buy it cheap and ride it for a few years. And anyway, he helped find these gems. Sometimes they were a little lemony, but usually they were pretty good. And he'd help with auto repair advice. And I remember he introduced us to Kenny. I don't know if anyone works with Kenny down in Richfield. This Lebanese guy, just a character, just smokes coming out of his mouth the whole time. And it's just so fun when I could go there with Papa and see the 2 of them interact. Just two characters, just talking shit, you know. And Kenny's like, it's gonna be 600. Papa's like, how about cash, Kenny? Anyway, I almost was thinking about giving Kenny a call just to know about Papa's passing, but those guys really liked each other. So anyway, thank you for the time, and please come and tell more stories.
Whoa. That's a little tall for me. Hi everybody, my name is Brian Murphy, and as most of us are saying, I'm an alcoholic. And I've known Joel for over 25 years, and he is part of a group of us that are all sponsored in Alcoholics Anonymous by the same guy. A bunch of them are sitting over there and a couple over here. They're all the guys with the dead look on their face that don't know any joy in their lives. I have a letter here, a little note from our sponsor named Terry Lindgren. He wanted me to write this, and he says, "It has been an honor and a privilege to be Joel's sponsor and friend for many years." Terry sponsored Joel for, I don't even know, 20, 30 years. Also, it's been terrific fun. I know Joel to be a terrific welcomed participant at any gathering. He was easygoing and often playful with his quick wit and charm. When Joel entered a room, he would light it up with his big smile. It's very true. I remember that when he'd come in, he'd first have that veneer of grump on his face, and then he would smile and it'd be like that right there. Wherever he went, he always enjoyed working the room, looking for new ones and visitors to help make sure they were received and with a solid welcome. Right up to his passing, he was a great contributor to those around him. I and Terry, and we will miss Joel very much. I have a little story of Joel's of my own. I remember when I was first in this thing, Joel would always come and say hi and talk to me, and we were up at a wedding reception, because within Alcoholics Anonymous, you have parties at the weirdest places and you have receptions at the strangest places for the weirdest things, but this was for a wedding, and we're up in the basement of a church on a Saturday night, and Joel and I are sitting at this table and we're playing Battleship. And Joel looks at me and he says, "It's Saturday night. I'm in the basement of a church playing Battleship. Man, is my life working out." That was such a great time just sitting here talking to that guy about that. We used to call him Pinky because we hear about the golf stories. He used to show up in meetings in the brightest clothes. And he had a job, pink can guy, at some of the meetings, so his nickname for us was Pinky, especially when you wear the pink pants with the white shirt and the belt, or the bright pink shirt with the yellow pants and the white shoes. Those are my two favorite things. So I really am going to miss Joel, seeing him around the rooms, and Katie, and I really want to know why he called you Nikki, because that was a question we had, Andrea, but he calls me Nikki. He didn't tell us that.
My
He's
middle
leaving us
name's
hanging.
Nicole.
Okay, there you thank you. So, whew, you know, it's one of those things. But we really appreciated him in my life, and I'm speaking for others, but for me, and I'll miss him, and I'm very sorry for your loss and all of our losses, but being here at this celebration has made it a little easier for us to get through, so thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Oh,
You guys think this is tough for you.
Chucky.
Anyway, so Joel and I worked together and played golf together and did everything for 30 years. And we were there that couple days, and you were talking about, reminiscing about things. And remember, Fabian tells a story that it helps Fabian get sober 3 times. He said, but the 3rd time he said, "I can't be your sponsor because my track record's not all that good." And we traveled together, and a couple quick golf stories. Joel was known to pitch one every now and then if it didn't go the way he thought it should. So we're in North Carolina down at Pinehurst, and he bought this putter. He was always thought that he could buy himself a game. So he buys this fancy putter. It's not going all that good. He paid a lot for this putter. Last hole, beautiful little lake on one side of it. He finishes with a 3-putt. Calmly walks over and throws the putter in the lake. So, gets in the cart, doesn't say much. Gets in the clubhouse, and he's having a Diet Pepsi or whatever. We're having a cocktail, and he goes, "I shouldn't have done that shit." I don't know. So now he walks down and he tries to get a hold of the bad guy that parking the carts. He says, "How much will it cost me to put your swimsuit on and go get my putter?" Well, the putter was long gone. One last story. We used to go to Phoenix every year. Every one game, we'd always go to Ruth Chris for steaks. So the winning team had buy the steaks, or the losing team, I'm sorry. So we're in the last hole. Joel and my friend from North Carolina, they have an 8-shot lead. There's a bunker like this, about 10 inches. He hits it in the face of the bunker. My friend says, "Joel, hit the ball back into the trap, out into the fairway, go." Now, if any of you know Joel, wrong thing to say. He gets in there, it takes him 9 shots. And my buddy from North Carolina goes, "Joel," he says, "You're not right, man." Anyway, so we had a lot of time. We had great times working together. I'm going to miss him. I'm going to tell you one last story. When last time I talked to him, he was not above grumbling a tad.
Yeah.
So we're talking, and I would say he was bitching about something. And I start laughing. And he goes, "What are you laughing about?" I go, "Well, I'm just laughing because even you have to slow down to get it out after your stroke, but you're still good at what you always were good at." So, I loved him. He's a great guy. I think everybody's got a million stories. He was a character. So you girls he loved you too. I know you did that. So anyway, that's all I got.
Hey, that's not gonna say, I love that. Pop would do that. Maybe that's what I did.
My kids are sitting next to me going, "Dad, go, go." I don't want to do this, but they know how important Joel is to me and to them. He was a great dad, even though he wasn't my dad. I think that was his skill, being a dad. Even to, people that he wasn't biologically related to. And that skill found a home in AA for sure. But it wasn't an AA skill, because at a certain point, that's how I met Joel in AA. But at a certain point, AA stopped resonating with me for whatever reason. Not because I wanted to drink, I didn't want to do AA anymore. But I knew for sure, one of the things that hit me when I made that decision was like, what am I going to do about Joel? Because he's the guy that I can't lose. Well, there's two guys. My best friend also. Anyways, I'm sitting here with like a wad of snot. Pathetic Alaska. Chuck was charming and funny, and I'm sorry for that. Anyways, I was thinking, what's a Joel quote? He said a lot of dumb shit and a lot of great shit and whatever shit, but the best quote by far is, "Hey, buddy." Because he said that every time he answered the phone, and he always answered the phone. And he talked, today was my son's birthday, actually. I'm making him cry too. Anyways, Joel, my dad is a great guy. He was here today, but for whatever the reason, he's never had the ability to give his time. He's always had other things. And Joel showed me before I had kids. I've known Joel in a long time, and he showed me what a dad looks like. And it looks like time spent. It's pretty simple. And I agree, man, that he didn't see his gifts as much as I wish he would have. His gifts was that he spent the time with the right people. And he showed me that that was the way to be a dad. And I will never forget that. I'm grateful forever for that. Katie's gonna tackle me if I get any closer to the microphone.
No.
All right. Thank you all. That's all.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike. I'm a used car guy. That's kind of how I knew Joel in the beginning, and wasn't surprised to hear that he was, like me, an alcoholic, because half the people in the car business are alcoholics. So that was no big surprise. But I got to know Joel a little bit better in the last 10 years. And we worked a little bit together and had a lot of opportunity to share stories and experiences, and we crossed paths. I mean, And one of the things I always remember about Joel, and I'm like the opposite of him, obviously the way I'm dressed, but Joel, and I told his grandkids this, he was the sharpest used car dresser I ever met in my life. That guy was coordinated with his belts, his shoes, his pants, like he had numbers to help him get dressed every day. But he always was a sharp dresser, and it was always important to him. And one of the things that in Joel was, really that, you talk about legacies and what is really a legacy. And I remember being at a thing like this a number of years ago to somebody. I sobered up at a place called West Suburban, but one of the grandkids got up there, and this guy was a really wealthy guy, and he had the money. And what the grandkid said, that one of the most things that were most important about my grandpa is he gave us time. They didn't care about the money, they really gave the time. And that's really one thing I really got attracted by Joel. His family was important, and those of us who are in recovery, I didn't have that when I grew up. I didn't have a close family, and I attracted to people that was important to him, you know, that he had that. Joel had a lot of integrity, and that's saying a lot when you're in the car business, like we are used car guys, but he had integrity, you know. He had to do things the right way and always did the right thing. When you mentioned that mechanic, but Joel did have a way to find the cheapest deal out there, didn't he? I mean, I know that place you're talking about. You wouldn't want to go there at night, but you know. But Joel would always find the deal, right? I mean, that's just how he was, you know. He had to have a good deal. That was important to him. But you know, and Alcoholics Anonymous was always important to him, you know, and he really liked being part of it and being around as long as he had been around, and is that he kept going, you know. I mean, even when hard times and hard situations came up, he still went and he was still there. And that says a lot about the person, you know, about who he was, you know, that he did that. One time, one quick story, he still was a little used carish type of guy. I remember one time when he got COVID and he was in Florida, and one thing about Joel, he always worried a lot. He was a worrier. And he said, oh, my family wants me to come home, I got COVID and all that stuff. And I know how he just was obsessed on it. I go, no problem, I'll go down there and get your car for you. I go, oh God, that'd be great. And then after I made the commitment, goes, oh yeah, one thing, by the way, I got 4 or 5 guns in the trunk of that car. Now you tell me I already made a commitment, you know. You know, there's a little something about his personality. They didn't want to tell me the whole story, just that. You know. But he wanted to come back, and that was, you know, that's just how, you know, kind of person he was. You know, you do things like that for people because they would do that for you. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of person that I get attracted to. I get attracted to people that are like that. You know, it makes it easier to do it because, you know, if you ever, like, and I've heard people say it here tonight, you know, if you ever, the last breath, somebody, I think, mentioned the last breath or the last dollar, that would be Joel. That reminds me of my father-in-law, you know. And he was that way, and he didn't have a lot of money, but he'd give you everything he got, and he'll be missed. He was a good man, and he was a good guy to be around, and I know he loved his family. He talked about him all the time, and it's kind of cool that you have those really neat memories of the holidays and the birthdays and stuff like that. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Hey everyone. Terry Carpenter, not to be confused with the other Terry. You know, I think one of my favorite things to do with Joel, and it's the simplest things. It's like the simple things always get you. Like when I saw his hat sitting on the table, that was when it hit me, right? But one of my favorite things was like when I realized that Joel liked me, was like, it was such a cool moment. When I realized he liked me was, we were sitting at a meeting and I started to get the narrative. Usually you go to a meeting, you listen to the speaker, but Joel had thoughts going on. And once he started sharing like that internal monologue with me, like the leaning over and letting me know, like, you know, it would be everything from, you know, that was a really good share to, who is this guy? You know, it's like, you know, I mean, like once he started to like peel back the curtain to let me see what was really going on with that committee, it was like, that's when I knew that Joel really liked me and that we were friends. And to me, that was so incredibly meaningful because I cared deeply about what Joel thought of me. You know, there's very few people in this world that like made me want to be a better person, and Joel was one of those people. He literally, I got to spend a lot of time driving with Joel, which is also another great memory. And I was typically doing the driving, which was much safer. But literally, you know, somebody else said this, and it's gonna sound a little repetitive, but like, you know, Joey and Maddie, like I feel like I know you because I've just heard so many stories you know, over the course of the years. But the other thing, again, you kind of going back, one of the things that I'll say too, like, is that I did care deeply about what Joel thought of me. Joel actually said many times that he thought that you were an outstanding father. And you know, and it was like, that was, when I think of the things that I wanted to try to live up to that Joel did, like you said, that was one of them, because I know how important everything with family was to him. And it's interesting because going to meetings with Joel, it's like he cared deeply about AA. He loved going to AA, and he talked about that to the last time that I saw him at a meeting. But it was secondary to how important family was to him. It was certainly a foundation that allowed him to show up and participate. But you know, in terms of what was important, it was you guys always. And I think that's important for you to know, because he gave a lot of time to us, but we were second. Yeah, that's all I got. Thanks.
We got time for 2 more before dinner, so here comes rock and roll.
Most impeccably dressed man. First, I don't know, dude. Ah, gosh, man, he was smooth in every way. You were blessed to have such a father. I haven't known him as long as some of you, but he was very impactful to my program. It wasn't what he did or what he said; it was who he was. Just an amazing man. You know, often we talk, and he kind of understood little thing. He knew I loved gangsters, and guys that had an edge to them. I hear the stories about his guns every time I see him. And we'd always have the snidest comments to say about people in their talks. Just don't worry about it. I can do this without. No, I'm good. But I had the privilege of I was part of his group in AA, and we would I'd always sit next to him. He'd always welcome me. He said, Charles, sit here next to me. And I'd sit next to him. And we'd listen to people tell their, you know, we had these 2-minute talks we had to do, and he'd give me the commentary of all of them. Look at this guy. Look at the history on him. And, it was like watching an episode a lot of times of, or being in the middle of an episode of Grumpy Old Men, right? And Joe would just, you know, it's hard. I sit in meetings now, and I miss him so much already. You don't know what you don't have until, or what you have until it's gone. But there's so much I can say, I want to say, but I can't. But what I can tell you is you were very blessed, and he loved you grandkids. Little Joey, I heard about you. I feel like I know all of you. There were so many stories. So much, he loved you so much. One time I was having some issues with my daughter, and he was there, and I said, Joel, you know, the only thing I've done great in my life, I think, is my kids. And he looked at me, and just with this look, and he said, yeah, Charles, I know. And I'm gonna miss him for so much, but you guys are all, you're so blessed.
I'll be really quick. Sorry, guys. We should let them.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Keep
Since
it
we're
rolling,
gonna
that's
eat,
awesome.
I remembered something Joel said. My name is Rick Fuller. I'm the uncle to kids. He loved you guys. He was always so nice to us when we'd come over for holiday parties, Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays. Always greeted me. Always asked me how my mom was doing. I think he met her once, but anyways, I remember one Thanksgiving we were around the table and people always like to say what they're thankful for. And going down the line with the kids, Joey would say, oh, thankful for great grades this year. Others would say world peace, you know, loving family. Remember one Thanksgiving, Joel said, thank God George Bush is president. Let's eat. I think Grandpa Harry dropped his fork when he said that. He always would make a graceful exit though, when we would have holiday gatherings. Joel, where are you going? Going to the Mall of America. He would go out there and do laps or something, you know, I guess. But I love Joel, he'll be missed. He was a kind man.
I'm Joe's brother, Ryan, and he's a really good guy. I know he loved his family a lot, and he did talk about them all the time. And we golfed together, and we had a lot of fun in life together, fished together, and hunted together. And I hate to think of him in a jar. It bothers me a little bit, but I know it doesn't bother him. But I love Joe. I loved his family. Joe was a pain in the ass here and there. He was. And there was a lot of lies about him today here, but I did love him a lot, and I'm gonna miss him. Love y'all, thanks. His little brother, and I heard that about 10,000 times through the years. This is my little brother, yo. I love them anyway.
Oh, thank God. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just back
Yeah.
up. Yeah. And use your man voice.
Yeah. I love Papa. He called me Baby Kate, and up until the end too. And I knew that he'd be especially proud of how I look today. He'd go, "Aw, Kate, you look perfect." He'd say something like that. Papa was a really good caretaker. He'd do pretty much anything, even if it was small things. Like he'd get, well, it's donuts on your birthday, and he'd get like pasta on Wednesdays, and then if you'd go down to the basement and say hi, he'd just be like, he'd be like, "You want a nut goodie? Like, I got it." He just had his little snacks in his corner. And he really liked mangoes. Like, he was really into like fruit, and he knew all the seasons, and he'd, you know, come home with things, and he's like, "Oh, you gotta try this." It kind of reminded me of like Kramer from Seinfeld. He was just such a nice person, and like when I was little, I, you know, was kind of picky about Chinese food. I didn't like it, and he'd always come home with the Chinese food, but then a separate little container of Cane's chicken for me. And I think it was partly because he liked Cane's and he wanted to have some. But he was always there for me, and just, he didn't make me feel bad about it, you know? He was just a great grandpa, but more like a father. Yeah. I agree with all of that. And there's just like, I just was like, I kept like racking my brain because there's so many memories I have of him that I could share. And I'm just like, it's just like so hard to like take all of them. I loved everything that you guys said about him. I loved like the relationship he had with the kitty and how he just didn't like the kitty, but he'd always cuddle with her. And whenever he'd come over to our house, even now, he'd always be like, I'd be like, "You want to see the kitty?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "It's just so cute." And I just remember like him always cooking things. Like he was always in the kitchen. He was always cooking things. I was making pasta. And like I remember like when I started cooking, like I'd always like go downstairs because I was so afraid that I'd be like undercooking something. Like I remember the first time I made like scrambled eggs, I brought them downstairs, and I'm like, because he was just like in the basement, I'm like, "Do these look okay? Like, do you think I can eat these?" And he's like, "Yeah." It's like the little things that you kind of just like, I don't know, it's like you don't get to do that with your grandparents all the time. And so I think it's really special that he was with us for so long. And I remember every time I'd go downstairs and he like wasn't expecting me to come downstairs, he'd be like looking at guns on his computer and stuff like that. I was just so confused. I don't know what he had with guns, like I don't know what it was. And he's like always had his little like, what's that one movie, like with all the gangster movies, like he like loved those things so much. And like I like listening to jazz in his car, and now actually I drive his car now, like I bought that car, so now it's like I always have his little like precious car with me all the time. And yeah, and the scent like smells like him. Like I remember when I got in there, I was like, it smells like Papa in here. I don't know, there's just so many things, and I just feel like we had such a special connection with him. And yeah, I don't know if it really hit me until I saw the urn, but it just doesn't add up, because like Papa filled the room, like even if he didn't say anything. And then one last thing was I got one of his sweater vests when we were moving him, and I don't know, clothes is kind of my thing, like I love sharing that with him. And I sent him a picture of me wearing the vest, and he called me up like immediately, and I was walking to school and he's like, "Baby Kay, like, you look fabulous." I was like, I love that sweater vest. And yeah, he's just such a classy man. I love that he was very like, I love how fashionable he was. I love how he seemed like, especially like for a man of his time, like he's very in tune with his like both his feminine and masculine sides of himself, and he was just very like, I don't know, he just was himself all the time. Right. And there's something else I was gonna say. I love that he just like put in so much work to be like a better person every day. And he just did so much to like get sober. Like I think the fact that he was sober for more than half of his life is insane, and so I'm so just like, it's so inspirational. And I just think that I love that he like put in that work, and I think that makes him very special, and that he impacted so many people's lives. And I agree with what other people said. It's like I hope that he realized that, even just a little bit. Like I hope that he understood the impact he had on people's lives. And just how excited we were for our friends and family to meet him. Yeah. And we bring him home. Yeah. So cool. Yeah. That's it.
I'm not going to talk again. I'm just making an announcement. So I think we're going to have dinner if you can join us. My dad really loved Urusso's pasta. So we have Urusso's came and dropped off a bunch of food to feed an army. Of course, Dad, there's enough food. Dad was always worried that there wasn't going to be enough food. There's enough food. So we do have Urusso's pasta, and everything is in the kitchen, when we can certainly continue to tell stories, and we hope that you stay for dinner. So thank you. What did you say?
You did a really good job.
Thank you.
Oh boy, I cried my whole life.
Are you staying?
Nice, great to see you.
Before I do you.
Yeah, no, he's helping you. Yeah, right. I'm gonna take out the iPad. There's some things I kicked on, man. What's going on?
Of course.
That was really good. That was really sweet.
Careful.
Yeah. So the last two young ladies. It's okay. Yeah. Everyone's waiting. Very nice to meet you guys together. You guys all have fun. Great guys. Oh wow. I didn't know it's been really good. Like I said, I guess it really does like they're just 40, I was 19. Oh wow. What I loved is what Brian Murphy said. You know, he's just a self. Yeah. So there's two good girls that actually came back. Yeah, and then my son Joey. The sweater, she's 24. He's 22. Joey's 19. It's always interesting. Nice to see that side. Yeah, no, great to see this. And then the other guy, the guy that was sitting here, that was for years. Yeah, he was the first guy out after the daughters. He is, but Joel always talks about him as the guy who, like, when he was trying to figure out what to do, he was